Next, we move on to Candida. I know as soon as I mention Candida, what comes to your mind? Candida albicans. But now I want you to change that mindset. Obviously, albicans is going to be the most common one, but I've got a long list of organisms that I have in front of me. So first and foremost, where did I place Candida in my classification? Remember, I called it yeast-like. Can you recall for me? What do you mean by yeast-like? So yeast property that it has is the budding property, and when I call it yeast like, that basically means it's going to show me the presence of pseudohyphae, right? So yeast like and pseudohyphae, budding and yeast, both are going to be there, and the most common is Candida albicans, of course. Candida albicans has a double twin brother. Double means when whatever albicans will show, doubliniensis will double it and show that as well. So copycat twin brother. So remember, albicans and double it up, that is doubliniensis. Other than that, we have something known as Candida glabrata. Glabrata is not going to show you. See, glabrata sounds like ghabrana. Ghabrana means you are going to leave everything very quickly. You're very scared of something. So it says, okay, I will show you budding. I won't show you pseudohyphae. I don't want to show you everything. I don't want everything. So ghabranas, glabrata or ghabrana is not going to have the pseudohyphae. Okay, next talk about Candida auris and Candida krusei. Candida auris and krusei are the ones which are resistant to azoles. Basically, for the treatment, we give azoles, but which are the ones which are resistant to azoles? So, auris is going to be resistant to the azoles, and we have krusei. So, please remember that when you're going on a cruise, obviously when you go on a cruise, you have become resistant to the world, means you are cut off from the world totally, because cruise there is no phone connectivity, no net connectivity, you're only in the water, so you are cut off and resistant and away from everyone in the world. So when this Candida has gone on a cruise, when this Candida has gone on the cruise, it has become resistant. That is the most important. Also, auris is resistant to the azole. So auris and krusei, cruise is resistant, cut off from the world. Finally, like in bacteria, remember when you see when I told you bacteriology and I told you how antibiotic sensitivity is done, you have to know whether the bacteria is sensitive to an antibiotic or not. Same way for fungus, you have to know whether a fungus is sensitive to an antifungal treatment or not. So what is the control? In all those sensitivity and susceptibility testing, which is the one that you use as a control, and that is control. What is control? Control is something very kifaiti. Kifaiti means something which is very useful. Control is going to help me control everything. So kefire is very kifaiti, means it's going to control everything. So remember, Candida kefire is going to be the control. Repeating once again, what all do we have out here? We have Candida albicans as the most common. Albicans has a double twin brother, everything same, that is doubliniensis. Candida glabrata is ghabrana, so it leaves away something, it leaves away the pseudohyphae. Candida auris and krusei, cut off from the world, that is resistant. And Candida kefire, kefaiti, it is used as a control. Having said that, now when I talk about Candida moving forward, I am in general talking about the most common one that you know, that is Candida albicans. Okay, so firstly, what all sites is it going to, be a normal part of? It's also a part of our normal flora, right? It's a part of our GIT, it's a part of our genital tract, of our nails, of our skin, of our mucosa, even in the internal organs. So it's definitely a part of our normal flora. And now I'm going to tell you that when the immunity of the person goes down, for whatever reason, maybe it is because of HIV or whatsoever, when the person is immunocompromised, then this normal flora can only end up causing infections, right? So what are the different types of infections? And this I've all written because I think when you start enumerating, every part of the organ of the body is affected. So let's go with the common ones. The common ones is mucocutaneous. When I talk about mucocutaneous, one of the most common pictures given to you will be oral candidiasis. There'll be, and I hope you all remember, there is a curdy white. I'm going to show you pictures in a while. There's a curdy white, very famous curd-like discharge or membrane that you're going to see. That can be in the oral cavity, so that is oral thrush. Go below the oral cavity, you have the esophagus. That can happen in the esophagus. Or what all other mucus sites in the males and females. In females, you have vulvovaginitis. In males, you have balanitis. Then, of course, eyes can be affected, ocular. So, like I said, gradually you will realize all organs are affected. Then what else? In kids, you can have involvement. One of the very famous ones, the next one where you get a question, that is diaper rash. Nails can be affected. Paronychia and onychomycosis. Nails are affected, of course. And after that, every organ is possible, from the bladder to the heart to the lungs to the brain. every organ possible. So where am I going to get the maximum questions? Either I get a question on oral candidiasis, or I get a question to do with gynecology, that is vulvovaginitis, or I get a question in pediatrics on diaper rash. These are the three main clinical scenarios that you're going to get, and one of them I'm going to discuss with you because I have already discussed that with you in your pathology lectures, and that is the very famous candida, right? Cervix, what do you see over here? Per speculum examination. You see the very famous curdy white discharge. As soon as we talk about the curdy white discharge that you see with candida, now you're going to look at it under the microscope. Do you remember there was a very famous shish kebab effect that we had studied in pathology? If not, then you can go back to your lectures and go into it. When we talk about the shish kebab effect, please remember I'm ruining a very interesting and a tasty dish for all of you. But what is shish kebab? So shish kebab and curd are ruined from today onwards because candida looks like curdy white, and shish kebab will tell you there is a skew, there's a stick, right, on which you put all the pieces of kebab. So that stick is actually the pseudo hyphae. That stick is referred to as the pseudo hyphae of candida. And where are those pieces of kebab? You can very well see these different pieces of kebab that are going to be there. So please remember, these pieces of kebab are nothing but the epithelial cells of the cervix. These are the cervix cells which have stacked up like pieces of kebab. So remember, there's a stick which is the pseudo hyphae, and then there are pieces of kebab on top of it. Let's mark it. So you can see an imaginary stick, a straight line going, and then you can see these various cells which are stacked up like pieces of kebab. So you'll have to imagine that why are they stacked up like pieces of kebab? Because one imaginary line must be holding them, and that is the pseudo hyphae. Okay, having said that, this is about one of them. Similarly, can you see the same curdy white discharge in the oral thrush, in the diaper rash? Yes, the same curdy white appearance is going to be seen. Having said that, like you said that, this is a part of your normal flora also. So you're going to see this when the patient is immunocompromised. So what are the conditions in which this is going to happen? So basic concept is that when the immunity is going to go down, or there is some immune problem that has happened. Now, if I want to enumerate those things, when the person is very, very old, immunity goes down. Diabetes, healing and immunity is problematic. In steroids, the immunity, there's an immunosuppression that is done. Pregnancy, again, is one more problem. Immunocompromised or immunodeficiency states like HIV, or a patient is undergoing a transplantation, patient has been put on some immunosuppressant drugs, or patient is born with some conditions in which his neutrophil count is low. Obviously, if his neutrophil count is low, he cannot fight infections. So yes, that is something again problematic, and it is seen very commonly in infants in the form of a diaper rash. I don't think there is anything new or fancy that I have told you out here, because the basic concept remains the same. Any situation where you play around with the immunity, candida can happen after that. Okay, having said that, I'm going to show you pictures on what exactly is candida going to do. So here we have, as I told you, candida is going to be a yeast-like organism, means it's going to have a bud also, and it's going to have a pseudo hyphae also. And let's correlate that. So when I say it has something like these tiny projections, these tiny projections are going to be the budding form. These tiny projections are the bud. And when I say it has these long buds, when the buds become very long, so these long buds are referred to as the pseudo hyphae. So the tiny ones are buds, and the long ones are known as pseudo hyphae. That is why I called it a yeast-like organism, right? Now let's try and grow it on a culture media. What is the famous culture media for all the fungal organisms? It is SDA, but what is candida going to show you on SDA? So there's a way of how it is written in the book, and there's a way of how we will learn it. So please remember, it's written as something known as very famous. Look at the color. Firstly, it is looking cream color. It's not looking like a pearly white. So first thing that we'll write is creamy in color. Next, it looks like paste. It's not like a powder, it's like toothpaste. So paste. And next, yeasty. What do I mean by yeasty? That everyone's, the smell that you get when bread is being baked, bread or any bakery smell, which all of us are very fond of, that is because of yeast and fermentation. So that kind of an odor is going to come. So how I have learnt it is a kind of a rhyme, okay? Yeasty, creamy, pasty, yeasty colonies. That is how we learn it. It is going to show you the creamy, pasty, yeasty colonies. Okay, having said that, what else? So it's showing you budding, pseudohyphae, creamy, pasty, yeasty colonies. Now we come to all the C's and the G's that I had taught you. If you remember, I have already taught you that when you're talking about candida, when you're talking about Candida and you grow Candida in a medium known as the corn meal agar, you see something known as chlamydospores. So when is spore formed? Spore is something that is formed when the surrounding or the situation is tough. So corn meal agar is one of those tough media which is basically deficient in a lot of nutrients. That is why the organism starts becoming a little tough. Repeating, so C for Candida, if I grow it in C for corn meal agar, I'm going to see C for chlamydospores. And how do I identify chlamydospores? Going to the first part of the chapter. I had told you that chlamydospores are going to be identified by their double wall configuration. It has a double wall configuration that we have over here. Having said that, I'm not over with the C's. There is one more C that you have, and that C is going to be the chrome agar. Can you grow Candida in the chrome agar? Yes, this is a chrome agar. This multicolored thing is a chrome agar. So remember, C for chrome agar, C for Candida. So all the C's now I've got you, right? C for Candida, C for chrome agar, C for Candida, C for corn meal agar, C for chlamydospores. There's one last test left. I'm going to change the C into slightly something. So this time the C is going to change into a G, and that is going to be the germ tube test. And what is the other name for a germ tube test? It is known as the Reynolds-Broad phenomenon. Repeating, C for Candida, C for chrome agar, C for corn meal agar, C for chlamydospores. Now the C changes into a G, germ tube test or Reynolds-Broad phenomena. What is this test? So what do? I take the Candida and I add human serum to it. I take the Candida and I add human serum to it, and suddenly after incubation I see there is an entire hyphae or a tube that has come out. That is why I called it a germ tube. I see an entire tube has come out of it. That is what you call as the germ tube test. Now I want to tell you something. Did I tell you that all of this I was talking about Candida albicans, but did I tell you that Candida albicans has like this duplicating brother, twin brother who's going to follow it everywhere? Did I tell you that Candida albicans has a brother called Dubliniensis? So now when I'm saying germ tube test is positive in Candida albicans, means it's positive in the twin brother Candida Dubliniensis also. When I'm saying that Candida albicans is showing you the chlamydospore, this means not only Candida albicans is showing you the chlamydospores, but also Dubliniensis is showing you the chlamydospores. So like I said, copy paste. Whatever I'm telling you for albicans, Dubliniensis goes hand in hand. So now you will ask me, okay, that if I'm talking about germ tube test, both of them show you the germ tube test, double. If I show you the chlamydospores, both of them show you the chlamydospores. So how do I differentiate? I have to have some point. Even twins have something different in them, right? So remember, the tougher twin, the tougher or the most common one is the tougher one, means which can grow above 45 degrees, albicans can grow. Which can grow in hypertonic saline, albicans can grow. So anyone at high temperature, at hypertonic saline, all these tougher environments, albicans is the elder brother, he will grow. Twin also, one twin is born always elder and one is younger. So albicans is the older twin, that will survive everything, and Dubliniensis is that chota wala twin. So that is not going to survive all these tough situations. That is how you differentiate albicans and Dubliniensis. I hope everyone's okay with this. And if you want to differentiate all the other organisms of Candida, what are you going to use? The colorful media. If you want to differentiate albicans from glabrata, from cruzi, from tropicalis, all these different ones, then you use the colorful media. You don't have to learn the colors. There is a reference chart. We compare the colors and we give the diagnosis. Finally, coming to the treatment, I have already told you that azoles are going to be the treatment. And which were the two which were resistant to azoles? I think that part also you guys have analyzed. That is going to be Candida auris and Candida cruzi. These are the ones which are resistant. So for most of the cases, azoles are given. For these two very common ones, that is oral thrush and vulvovaginitis, topical nystatin is also preferred. For severe, we can go for azoles or for nystatin. But for deep candidiasis, for organ involvement, for deep candidiasis, liposomal amphotericin B is given. So usually it is azoles and nystatin, and for deep it is going to be lamb. Okay, having said that, Cryptococcus done, Candida